Read it again. You're wrong. I want him, I love him, I need him. Am I allowed to say that on the internet? Hello, welcome back to my channel and welcome to Bookmas. I have no idea what day we're on, but we're somewhere in the middle of it. For today's video, I decided to go through every book I've read so far in 2024. I think I've read 90 books, hoping to get to 100. I don't know if we'll actually reach it, but so far I've read 90 books as of today, December 4th. When I went to create this list, I searched first for the books that I rated 4.5 stars or higher, but 24 is actually a big number, and I was nowhere near close to that many books. So then I decided to include 4-star and higher, but 4-star the lowest. So some of these books are like my favorites. Others are books I just really enjoyed and I highly recommend. So we got a range here. And I think I ordered them in like reading order from January to now. The first book that I love, Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Spring series. This is small town country cowboy romance. This is with Willa and Cade. Cade is a single dad. I think Willa's a nanny at some point. Okay, I read this in January. All the details aren't as crisp as they used to be, okay? I love this book. I love their connection and their love and just the emotional depth. That's what gets me in romance books, is when I actually feel like the couple loves each other, and like not superficially and not just based on like physical attraction. Even though like, yes, this is a spicy book, there is still that emotional depth. And so I love the series so much. You might see more of the series in this video. If you haven't read Chestnut Springs, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get on it. And also just note, Flawless is not on this list because I read it in November of 2023. Otherwise, it would be on this list. The next book that I absolutely loved, gave 5 stars, was of course Fourth Wing. How could you not give this 5 stars? If you did not give this book 5 stars, read it again. You're wrong. Of course, I'm kidding. Everyone's allowed to have their own opinions on books and in general, but I absolutely love this book. I love this series. I really enjoyed the fantasy, even though there was times where I was a little confused as a new fantasy reader. I was able to understand it relatively quickly, and it was so captivating. The story of like the war college and politics going on and the conflict in that, but also the love story, the enemies to lovers, their connection between Violet and Xaden. Oh, it's so strong. Like, I felt so emotionally connected to these characters and to their love and to their story and what they were doing and fighting for. This book has my heart, okay? It has my heart. Xaden has my heart. I love him, and as soon as I can get Violet out of the way, Xaden is mine. This fictional man on paper is mine. Next book, I don't have a physical copy of because I just lent it out to a friend yesterday, but that book is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This is magical realism. They have this magical apartment that can take you 7 years in the past or 7 years in the future. And so Clementine, our main character, she's staying at her aunt's apartment, this apartment. She's 7 years in the past and there's a guy there. And so you know, meet him and you know their story, but then she like leaves the apartment and she's back in like, you know, her current time, and then she's in the apartment and she's back in 7 years ago. And it's really cool and interesting. I love her books. I love the magical realism. They also had a great emotional connection, those two characters, and I loved their story. And once you realize how like the past and the present connects, it's just really interesting to me. I love her books, and I think they're just so well done. I think out of the 3 books that I've read by her, Dead Romantic, 7-Year Slip, and A Novel Love Story, I think The 7-Year Slip has the best romance. There's also like women's fiction in there too, because you are seeing more of like her life and her story, but the romance is also very strong in this book, and I think it's really well done. Oh, and I just realized, starting with The 7-Year Slip, every single book after that I'm going to talk about are in some video of some kind on my channel, because I started YouTube in February. This is Unfortunately Yours by Tessa Bailey. I love Tessa Bailey, okay? I love her so much. And I know a lot of people don't like her writing and her books, and like, I get it, because we all have different tastes, but I love almost everything she writes. The only book I haven't loved by her is Secretly Yours. That one fell flat for me. But every other book I've read so far by her, and I'm gonna keep reading more and more as much as I can, I love and I eat it up. They are very spicy, but I love the men she writes. I like that they're like protective, a little possessive, obsessive, like their woman is like their top priority, and they like fight hard for that, their woman, you know, and I just eat it up. I love it so much. And that is the same with this. Unfortunately Yours is Natalie and August. It's like enemies to lovers a little bit. They can't stand each other. They always bicker and they argue. He is trying to work on this like winery, and she's like a professional wine taster. That's definitely not it, but she's like a professional in this industry, if you will. And then they have to get married, right? So it's a marriage of convenience trope, and then of course feelings form, and I love it so much. Now, I told you were gonna see another book like this. Powerless by Elsie Silver, the third book in the Chestnut Spring series. This is Jasper and Sloane's story. I feel like I've heard people say this is their least favorite book, and I'm like, no, you're wrong. This is the best book. This is the best book. Oh my gosh, Jasper Gervais, I want him, I love him, I need him. She is a professional dancer. He is also, he's a hockey player. It's kind of like childhood crush to lovers. I don't know if they were like childhood best friends. I don't know if they'd say that, but she's liked him since they were kids. She's about to get married to the wrong guy, and he comes in and saves her and helps her out of that situation. And they go on this like journey together, and there's a road trip, and it's just really good, and I love it so much. So read the series, please. Another one of my favorite books. This is like kind of random. I've never heard anyone talk about this book, but The Heiress Gets a Duke by Harper St. George. This is a book of the month book. I found it in a free little library. I love this book so much. So it is very much giving like Kate and Anthony from Bridgerton. It's like enemies to lovers, and he is, you know, I think he's a duke, and he's like has to get married, and for financial reasons, and so he then sets his eyes on, or I don't know if it's like not an arranged marriage, but like it's kind of set up for him to get engaged to our main character's younger sister, but then our main character and him like have just this connection, but they like irk each other. I really enjoyed this. It was something just different from like a regular not normal, but a regular contemporary romance, that like the change of pace and the different style, like it really just did it for me, and I devoured it because it was just like something a little different. Reckless, the fourth book in Chestnut Spring series. Reckless is Theo and Winter's story. This was so good. So good. I ate this book up so much. I loved the way he loved. He loved so hard and strong, and he was just such a pure man, and I adored him, and the way that he treated Winter and someone else in this book was just so heartwarming. I know this is a trope that not many people love. I don't typically love, but Elsie Silver did it right. Oh my gosh. Go read the series, please, for me. Okay, whoops. After Fourth Wing, I was supposed to tell you about The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. This series follows three different brothers. There's three different books for each brother. Their grandfather basically owns Disneyland. I mean, it's Dreamland, so it's not literally that, but it's like the theme park. So this one follows Rowan and Zara. So their grandfather passes away, and in order for the three brothers to get their inheritance and their like ownership and part of Dreamland, they each need to do different things. For Rowan, so to receive your 18% of the company, you'll be expected to become the director and spearhead a unique project for me for 6 months. Okay, so that's what he has to do. And then Zara is, she works at Dreamland. I read this in one sitting, and this is not a thin book. It had such a fast pace, and it was just so interesting, and it was really fun reading about like this setting and them falling in love at the setting. So I really enjoy the series. I have to finish the last book, and then I'll complete the series. Anyway, back to our normal timeline here. The next book is another Tessa Bailey book. This is Fangirl Down. This one is really unique. So Wells is a professional golf player, and Josephine, she's his #1 fan. Like, she shows up to every, does it count as a game? Golf outing? But like with like a sign saying, I think like Wells Bell or something like that, and like she's always cheering him on, and she's been his like biggest fan forever, and like he knows her because of how much she shows up, and so he's kind of just like, his career is not doing well, he's not performing great, and he's just like, no, I'm done, like we're over this, like, so he kind of doesn't really like her at first. She actually works at her like family owned business that is around golf. I don't know, it sells golf stuff. Clearly I don't know golf well. He actually goes there and is like, will you please be my new caddy? And she kind of like helps him get his game back. And they fell in love. I loved their love. I loved how much he cared about her, and it was so good. Next up, we have something a little different. Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. This is a dark romantic comedy. I dabble a little in dark romance, but I don't like jump in. Like, I have my limits. And I really enjoy this series because it's a romantic comedy, but just like dark. So they are both serial killers. Am I allowed to say that on the internet? Rowan and Sloane, those are their names. They both have the same hobby. And they like meet up one time and they decide to have this like annual competition where they have someone like pick a target for them, and each year they like kind of like fight to try to like be the one to take the target out. It's a friendly competition, you know. It's definitely like gory and gross at times. Check the trigger warnings because it's like weird, crazy stuff is happening in this book, but they fall in love as they do. It is so funny. I was laughing out loud reading this book. If you are like, I'm interested in dark romance, but I'm a little scared, try this one out. Like it's still dark, but it's hysterical. And the romance is really good. Another book that's, I don't know if it's a little dark romance in a way, is Tied by Carrie-Anne Cole. This is a very interesting book. Definitely trigger warnings. So Holly was kidnapped when she was 5 years old. She is not rescued until she's like 16, and she's rescued and then found out by Tyler. Tyler finds her, saves her, and takes out her captor. And so immediately she's like, oh my gosh, I love him. Or just like, I don't know if it's like that at first, but it's like, oh, I'm drawn to him. He just saved me. He's my savior. And like, so it's savior complex. She, you know, is finally reunited with her family, and she goes through years of therapy. She doesn't really fit into her family very well. Her family doesn't really know how to like treat her or like handle her. And so she finds Tyler again and they reconnect. You find out that he has a really troubled past as well. So check trigger warnings for this book because it is like dark, has a lot of dark elements, but there was something so pure about this book. There was parts of it that like annoyed me where I felt like she was a little naive, but also keep in mind that she spent 11 years of her life locked away. And so she's still kind of like learning relationships and emotions and different things like that. As I got further into it, I absolutely loved their relationship and what they were for each other and how they helped each other through things. I found it to be very beautiful. The next book I won't talk too much about, but is Iron Flame, the second book in the Empyrean series after Fourth Wing. I wasn't sure if I was gonna like this book because so many people said it was a letdown from the first book. I disagree. I ate this book up. I loved it so much. I loved Xaden and Violet together and their love. It was so beautiful and so, I don't know, emotionally depthful, and I just ate it up. I really enjoyed the conflict and what they were doing, and I was very invested in that. I was on the edge of my seat. I am so excited for the third book to come out. I won't say too much because I already spoke about like Fourth Wing and I can't say much without spoiling it, but I love this series and I highly recommend it if you haven't read it yet. Another book I loved this year was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I don't know how to say his name. This is about Alicia, who is a silent patient. She took out her husband and has been silent ever since, never spoken a word. And then we have Theo, who's a psychotherapist who's really interested in her case and everything, and goes to the facility she's at to try to like treat her and help her. And a lot of wacky twists and turns, man. I also read this book in one sitting without meaning to, without intending to, because it was that good. It was quick, fast, crazy turns. I was really invested. Highly recommend this book. It's a great thriller. Another book I loved was Experiencing Friendship with God by Faith Yuricho. This book was such a great book. I feel like every Christian should read this book. It really emphasizes how important and beautiful our friendship and relationship with God is. He's not like just our savior, even like just our savior. It's a huge thing, but he's also our best friend, and he wants to spend time with us, and he loves us so dearly. I love God so much, and so reading about this really ignited my own friendship and relationship with God and helped me to pursue Jesus more because I want to spend time with him and I love him, and I really want to do like a reread because I want to deepen my relationship with God. Next, I'll group these two together. These are the first two books in the Part of Your World trilogy interconnected standalone series. So Part of Your World is first. I love this book so much. Alexis and what is his name? Daniel. They also had such a deep emotional connection that I cried reading this book. And same with yours truly. This follows what Brianna and Jacob, their connection as well made me cry. I cried, I think, reading all 3 of these books. Not like sobbing, but like tearing up. And so like the mental health representation in this book is so amazing, and it's so cute with like the letters and just the banter and how their relationship grows. Same with the banter in this one and just their obstacles. I love this series. I highly recommend it. Abby Jimenez is an amazing writer. I recommend all of her work, even though I've only read these 3 books so far, but I intend to read more by her in 2025. Another Christian nonfiction book. This is Becoming Happy and Healthy by Janine Amapola. So you might know her from YouTube, the OG YouTube days. She's also still a YouTuber, but she focuses on Christian content. I really enjoyed reading this book. So each chapter is kind of about a different thing. So she talks about faith, expectations in life, contentment, friendships, dating, confidence, habits, career, decisions, secrets, being set apart, wellness, how to take care of yourself, adventure, satisfaction. She talks about everything that like you need to know in your 20s, especially as a Christian person, but like even aside from that. I truly like go back to this for advice. I'm like, how do I make the most of my 20s? Like I want to go traveling and I want to see the world and I want to do things, but I'm also broke, but I'm also trying to figure out my career and I'm trying to figure out my life and I'm trying to like navigate friendships and also relationships. Like I highly recommend this book. It's short, it's quick. I was highlighting, underlining so many things. It really, really encouraged me in my faith and just my life. Like literally, not all of this is about like faith. A lot of it is, but like there's even just like life things that like are so beneficial. So I highly recommend this. So I finished the Chestnut Springs series and then I started the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver. What I love was a 6-star read. This is brother's best friend, like also like childhood friends to lovers. Ford has always loved Rosie. You feel it. There's actions, there's words, through the emotion. It is so beautiful and I love it so much. And he just loves her so much. And she ends up actually moving from the big city to the small town of Rose Hill, where he's at and where they grew up. And her brother is there and raising his kids. And she ends up working for Ford at his like new record company, label, whatever you want to call it. And also every book in the series, a single dad. This like 12 or 13-year-old girl knocks on his door and is like, hey, you're my bio dad. And he's like, what? Read this book, read everything by Elsie Silver because I love her so much. Next up we have Heartstopper. Basically like this whole series. I've only read the first 3 books so far. I watched the Netflix series as soon as it came out a few years ago, but I wanted to like actually read the graphic novels and they just made me so happy. They're such a refreshing read, especially after like reading so many like, not normal novels, but like non-graphic novels. It's just a great change of pace, and Nick and Charlie are the sweetest couple ever, and I want only the best things for them. Even though they are fictional, I need them to be the happiest and most in love ever because they deserve the entire world. Next up, we have another book by Ashley Poston, a novel love story. It's again magical realism. Our main character, Elsie, she is on a road trip where she's gonna go to this like cabin or something and just like read by herself. Her friends couldn't make it. And while she's driving, there's a storm. She stops in a small town because I think she almost hit a man, and it's raining and it's storming, and she realizes that she stopped in the fictional town of her favorite romance series. So she gets to meet all the characters that she's like loved for years, and then she also meets a guy that she doesn't recognize from the books, and who could he be? And so there's the romance, there's magical realism, I feel like this is kind of women's fiction a lot, and I typically don't love that, but I connected with Elsie and her story and her relationship to books, and specifically romance books, her favorite romance books, and like kind of that escapism from her real life, and like both the good and bad ways that she uses to cope using these books. I thought it was a beautiful story, and I highly recommend it. Don't go in this for the romance. The romance is fun. It's not the best romance there has ever been. Go in it more so for Elsie's journey because it made me cry. I think I sobbed reading this. Next up, of course, we have another Elsie Silver book. This is Wild Eyes, the second book in Rose Hill series. Third one comes out in March. I'm so excited. So this is West, Rosie's brother. Of course, he's a single dad. He is divorced, and he has 2 young kids, and Skylar Stone, who is this famous country singer, ends up coming to the small town to work with Ford at the record label to record an album. Skylar and West cross paths. We find out West has been like Skylar's biggest fan, and they just have an immediate like chemistry and connection, and it's just a really fun so much fun. Oh, and he like works with horses, so still cowboy-ish romance. They gave soulmate energy to me completely. If a book has soulmate energy, I am sold. I'm hooked. And that is why I also loved Consider Me by Becca Mack. Olivia and Carter are soulmates. He is a hockey player. She, I think, is a teacher, a PE teacher, and she's like, I'm not messing with hockey players. Like, no, we're not doing that. He is this huge player, and he gets around with all the ladies. And then he sees her and is like, I need her, I want her. She's mine. And she's like, yeah, no. And then he changes his ways and falls in love and is obsessed. He is obsessed with her so much. And he executes all 5 of the love languages to the extreme. I love him. He loves her so much, and he's a book husband. The book is just so sweet. It's very spicy. It could have been less spicy. And also I feel like we do have a chunk where they're just happy, and it's fun to read, but after a while you're like, okay, where's the plot again? But because I love them so much and I love them being happy, I love reading about them being happy. Next up, Heart of the Raven Prince by Tessania Odette. This is a Cinderella retelling, part of the Entangled with Fae series. So Ember, she's half Fae. She's, you know, scrubbing away the floors for her stepmother and stepsisters. And then we have Prince Franco. He's also Fae, and he must marry a princess for reasons you find out when you read the book. Through some magic, Ember ends up pretending to be the princess that he is engaged to, or like courting to like then get engaged. So it's like kind of fake dating in a way, because then they both know that there's like this magical element, like they're faking, but they actually get to know each other. It's a really fun fairy tale vibe. Like, I want to continue the series because it's so much fun with the fairy tale elements. You get the classic stuff from the original story, but you also just have like that added magic of like the Fae and how like this kingdom works, and you have the other like characters from the other fairy tale retellings from the other books are in here too. So this was just very sweet and fun and a good time, and it just warmed my little girl heart that just love those fairy tales, but also just make me a little bit more a fantasy. Last book is The Only One Left by Riley Sager. This book, I think, is one of the best thrillers, mysteries. I know some people have posted that they disagree with me, and that is so fair. But to me, this book is amazing. So back in the 20s, the Hope family, all of them ends up dead except for Lenora, and so everyone thinks that she's the one that did it, but they can't prove that she did or didn't do it, so they can't do anything about it. And time goes on, she has a lot of health complications, she can't speak anymore, and she can only use like part of like her left side of her hands or body or whatever, so she is really struggling physically. So she still lives at the mansion that she grew up in, and now it's the 80s, and Kit ends up being hired to be her caregiver. She meets Lenora, and Lenora has a typewriter that she can type with like just like her one hand, and she types out like, I want to tell you everything, because no one knows what happened. The twists that this book had, it felt like every chapter or every other chapter there was a twist. And for me, that's what I need, because I get so bored with mysteries and thrillers. Like, if there's not continual like twists and turns and ooh, ah, you know, I get bored. And so this book kept me entertained from like the very beginning. Like, I was in it, I was hooked. It was so good. I've never been so emotionally connected to the characters in a mystery or thriller before. By the end of the book, I was crying for the characters because I just cared about them so much and like want the best for them. I highly recommend Riley Sager's books. I only read 2 of them, but this one and The House Across the Lake, so good, so good. Go read those books. Whew. Okay, we just yapped for a long time. Thank you for watching, for joining me for my first ever Bookmas. Let me know what your favorite books of this year are, and I will see you in my next Bookmas video. Happy holidays!